toilets, trash, mowing, landscape, sheetrock, paint. What does that sound like? Rental homes, multifamily, real estate, lots and lots of liabilities and labor and cost and operating cost and management and personnel and variable matters and issues in order to maintain your traditional real estate portfolio. Look, what I want to tell you is this, that there's a word out there used by financial planners and so-called financial experts, and they call it passive income. Now, I don't know what your definition of passive is, but passive for me is I don't want to have to worry about the asset I own, and I don't want to have to go do work. I don't want to be subject to unknown cash calls. I don't want to be over leveraged where I can have someone take my asset away. What I really want when you say passive, it means the asset works for itself. The asset generates income regardless of what goes on in the economy. If you truly ask what the definition of a passive income is, I can guarantee you your financial advisor, your CPA, those so-called experts that are guiding and advising you on what to do with your own money don't really mean passive income. What they mean is it's income you're not in charge of. It's income you don't control. It's income you can't rely on because you've invested in a special purpose vehicle or a partnership or LLC or a limited partnership or a joint venture that has an organization agreement, has a company agreement, has an offering document, a PPM, a prospectus. It has some kind of controlling contractual enterprise structure that says you don't really own the asset. What you really own is part of a special purpose vehicle that owns the asset, and you simply have funded it. Now, I've got thousands of friends and clients that own lots of real estate, rental homes, mobile home parks, RV parks, multifamily, self-storage, and they all look at it and say, yeah, but I made great returns on those investments. That's in an upcycle. What happens in a down cycle like we're in today? What happens when the fundamentals of the cost of capital to refinance, the rising cost of insurance, the rising cost of labor, the rising cost of supplies and goods? We're in the crude oil business here at my company. And what we talk about is how oil and natural gas are going to create a massive inflationary trend that's going to directly affect real estate properties. You're going to pay more for your diesel, your fuel, your gas, your labor, your parts, supplies, logistics, electricity, utilities. That's all going to erode your traditional real estate portfolio value very, very quickly. So when you think about passive income, you might ask yourself this question: what you think passive income means and what the person selling you the next investment thinks it means, guess what? It's like we both look at the same glass of water. One of us says it's half full. The other one says, I don't even see a glass. See, it's not just half full or half empty. You don't even see the same actual asset or physical property. You're seeing it from one's making a fee, one's making a net profit, one's making a profit, and one is risking 100% of their money on the true competency of the managing member or the person in charge or the structure of the vehicle, the structure of the entity, the structure of the SPV. You really do have not invested. You have not invested in a passive asset or passive income. So what is it when I think about passive income? Well, look, I do this for a living, so I'm going to tell you what I think. The only passive investment I've known in 4 decades of investing is mineral rights, oil and gas mineral rights. I own it. It's titled. It's deeded. I have it filed in the courthouse. I have major multi-billion-dollar oil companies that have drilled the wells, that have taken the lease out. They assume 100% of the liability. They assume 100% of all the responsibility and expenses and everything, environmental, all of it falls on the lessee, which are these billion-dollar oil companies. And what I get is I get true passive income. I get a check every 30 days for every drop of oil and every molecule of gas that's sold underneath or adjoining or any way including the mineral rights that I own. I don't spend a dime. I don't invest a dime. I don't control the speed. I don't control the activation. What I control is my hand out, palm up. I control, give me my money every 30 days, or the very lease that you signed expires if you ever default and don't pay me my share of the royalty income for the mineral rights that I own, allowed you to lease, allowed you to assume responsibility, and you got to pay me first without any deduction. Name one asset that truly matches or even comes close when you say passive income to a mineral right ownership. Now, when I think about the ownership of mineral rights, I then think about this Iranian war, and I think about commodity price, and I think about the Ukraine-Russian war, which is 5 years deep into existence. And I think about what goes up must come down. I think what goes down must come up. And I think about all the different variables in the economy, recession, inflation, stagflation. And I say to myself, that's all good and dandy. But over the last 40 years, what I've watched is I've never missed a single royalty check from any well or mineral I've owned in 40 years. What I like to know is I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care if it's Republican, Independent, or Democrat. I don't care whether we're in recession, inflation, because it just changes the commodity price. It also changes the amount of exploration and supply. What I get the advantage of is I own 100% of the natural resources below the ground, below the surface in the mineral rights I own. So when I see a war and the Strait of Hormuz being shut down, and I see us at 101 million barrels a day of demand, and they say demand destruction is going to take away 1 million barrels next year. But the supply side says, look, we spent $5 to $10 trillion is being spent to add AI and artificial and utilities, and we're $2 trillion short on electrical grids. And I say to myself, who cares about the million barrels a day of destruction, because I'm not going to go to the movies or take an airplane cruise or take a plane because the jet fuel is too costly. What I know is the amount of demand that's coming is like a tornado. The amount of centrifugal force by all the money that's being spent that's going to consume so much further electricity and fossil fuel tells me one clear message. My passive income is going to go up. My passive income is going to be broader and better. And not only that, but because it's so passive, I don't care what the cost of exploration is. I don't care what the cost of capital is. What I care is, do I own a real piece of property, a real investment that my investment advisor can't control, my CPA can't control? I have the largest, most wealthy oil companies on the planet as my tenant, and I'm the lessor. I'm a mineral rights owner.